when I was watching. So the next film we have is Sergio Leone's 1984 masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in America.
I do not know which version of this movie I've seen, but I'm kind of with the critics, how they were at the time with this one. I just can't get behind anyone in this one to where I can't follow them for 3 hours.
Yeah. Actually, I think this film was 4 hours long.
Oh my god.
4 hours long with intermission.
Yeah, I've not seen that cut.
And it spans the course of 4 decades in New York City.
On a positive note, I will say the cast in this is fucking enormous. Jennifer Connelly, Treat Williams, Frederick Forsyth.
Oh, and Joe Pesci was
James
in it for
Woods is also in this.
Yeah. So it's about a former Prohibition-era Jewish gangster returns to the Lower East Side. Yeah. Noodles, played by Robert De Niro again.
Noodles, my
Yeah, where he once again must confront the ghosts and regrets of his old life. So it's about the Jewish mob. So it's about like these group of kids who started off as like these lackeys for this other Jewish gangster named Bugsy or something.
Yeah, Bugsy Malone.
Yeah, so then they decided, you know what, we're going to go into business ourselves, and they tried to break off from that. But Bugsy, he didn't like it. So he was like, you got to go down. So then after they got a beating from them, they're like, okay, we got to step up our game. So they ended up joining the Italians and the Italian mafia and helped out with and that's where they kind of grew when they grew their business up like that, and it became like this notorious Jewish mob and all that kind of stuff. So, and then they started doing like really, really bad things, man. They did heists. They did all that kind of stuff. They they dealt with unions, like, and all that kind of. They dealt with unions. They helped with unions go against the employers. You know, those beard twirling employers. Like, you gotta work 50 hours a day.
I don't
for a nickel.
That seems like out of place that they would.
No, it wasn't at all. They didn't have proper work unions back then.
Back then they had.
But that's what I'm saying. But a bunch of gangsters that do bad things, but then they also fight for the employers.
They do whoever has the best price. They do that whoever has the best price.
Oh, so they were paid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the union leaders would pay them. They would also go to the employer's side. They would break up strikes and everything.
Okay.
So
you've seen on the look at the movie On the Waterfront. That's a decade later, but that gives you an idea.
Yeah. So this takes place in between 1920s all the way through the 1980s, and we see like the span of an entire life from.
Because it goes back in time to show like how they came up.
We see like 11, 12-year-old them, and then they see them in their 30s, and then again in their 80s.
Oh wow!
So they're also really old. So it mostly chronicles the lives of two partners in crime, Noodles, played by Robert De Niro, and Max, played by James Woods. Okay. Now James Woods had a really big role in this one, way more than he did in Casino.
He's way more demented than De Niro at times, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, in this film. The thing about this film is that it was the most graphic out of all the ones I've seen.
It had to be cut at the time.
Oh yeah, I can see why. Because I watched it and it was like super graphic. And I remember in the film we see the main character, Noodles, he had this like kind of this crush on this girl, this local girl, and who was like in the bakery, who was like the baker's daughter, and she would dance.
Wants her to love him.
Yeah, she would practice dancing and everything, and you would watch her practice dancing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so in love." Well, he was a kid, so it's not creepy.
Oh, okay.
He was like a little kid, so he would kind of like peep on her through like a little hole, little brick hole, but it's not creepy. Because he's a kid. Okay. So it makes it adorable.
Okay.
Later
on, he becomes a creep.
Oh yeah. So what happens was like after he built his Jewish mob empire off of doing hits for the mafia and selling drugs and all that, he was like he met up with her again because he actually went to jail for 30 years after stabbing a police officer.
As a little kid?
He was a kid, yeah. Because, well, Bugsy came back and he was like, you're trying to take over my business. So he shot one of
This is based on an
their
actual
members.
guy.
Yeah, I think maybe. I don't know. It was based off a novel. I remember it was based off a novel called The Hoods. So, okay, so Bubsy killed one of the kids from their gang, and then they're like, revenge. So he stabs him, and then the cops come in. He's like, hey, break it up, you guys. And then he says, you want some too? Stab, stab, stab. So he stabs an officer, and then he gets 30 years. But he was a kid, so he gets out when he's like in his 40s.
Right.
So after that, he meets like that girl that he would spy on when he was a kid.
Again.
Yeah, except she's older and pretty.
Okay.
And then she's like, well, I'm rich now because we're very successful in our crime business. So why don't you go out with me? Because I'm very wealthy. And then she's like, sure, why not? Oh.
Adorable.
And then, so he rents out this restaurant. It's completely empty except just for them. And he had like the entire wait staff and everything, everybody just lined up for them. On standby. So it was like, pick any table you want, only the best. So he takes her out, and they do that. They eat dinner, and then they go out to the beach nearby, and they have like a special area and everything. And,
of course.
And then he's all like, so I'm really into you. Is it doing anything for you?
And I just got out of jail.
Yeah, and then she's like, actually, I only came here because I wanted to tell you that I'm leaving for Hollywood tomorrow because I want to be an actor. And then he's like, Nani?
Me.
Okay.
What?
So he was like, Nani?
Nani? What is that?
It means what in Japanese.
Really? And
Yeah.
that's what he says?
No, he doesn't say that, but
okay.
it was like that.
Okay.
So he...
Someone's been watching anime.
Yeah. So he drives, so he and gets like this, he and her ride home with the driver in the front. And then they're like, he's there sulking because he's sad because she's leaving. And he's like, I don't want her to leave. So they're like, oh, let's kiss one last time. And then she's like,
Cuddle.
okay, let's kiss. Oh. And then he's like,
Oh.
I was like, oh, snap. You know what should be really great? Rape.
And then you got
No. And then he just straight
The
up.
way you said that.
And then he just straight up
Fucked up.
He
rapes
rapes
her.
her.
She rapes her really graphically. We hear the screams and everything of her saying no. And I'm like, I remember when I was watching that, I was like, driver, why aren't you doing anything?
There's a driver
There's
there?
a driver there, and he hears everything. He's like, driver, why?
I think he had him
are
on
you
his tab.
Yeah.
I don't like watching rape scenes.
Oh, me neither. Well, finally, like after like
Well,
a
what's
good...
even worse is half the time you can't tell the difference between someone trying to be gratuitous or actually trying to make a dramatic reenactment. It grays the line between artistic and just trashy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
And definitely here is a perfect example. This is what really divided audiences on this movie. Some people were like, this is crappy, and other people are like, oh, this is very artistic because we've never seen anything this vividly depicted about a terrible subject.
Oh yeah. So after a good minute of him raping her, the driver finally stops, and then he opens the door, and then Noodles was like, maybe I should stop, and then he gets out.
Oh my god.
And then he gets out of the car. They stop in the middle of nowhere. So he's like.
And this was after he was sad about her leaving.
Yeah, and so the driver comes up to her, he's like, here's your coat and your hat, and then he's like, here, take her home. He pulls out a wad of cash, like, here, take her home. And then he's like, and the driver's like, keep your money. Slaps it out of his hand. He did slap it out of his hand, but he was like, keep your money. And he goes back into the car and drives off.
You scumbag.
I'm like, okay, now you do something, driver. Well, guess better late than never, I guess. So, yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Like, I can't...
I don't
after
like
that,
it.
all of his credibility kind of went out the window. Because I can't get behind a
I
person
can't
who
say.
rapes.
I gotta rewatch this movie.
Do they try to make you get behind him after he rapes her?
Well, he's supposed to be the protagonist.
It's kind of showing it more from a third person
Definitely not a
of how he has a
protagonist thing to
shitty
do.
life and then a big accomplished life. I'm going to rewatch this with more open eyes, so I'm not going to give a rating at the moment.
Okay, so, Ruby, what do you think about, like, could you forgive a character who raped his childhood best
Nope.
friend.
I don't think so.
Just like I can't forgive Jamie Lannister for putting a kid in jeopardy and fucking his sister on
Again
Game of
with
Thrones.
the Game of Thrones. Getting out with the Game of Thrones.
Bran was like,
Everyone tries to make him
Jamie.
likable. I'm like, nope, it's not working. I like this actor. I don't like this guy.
So
Man, he called him out on it too. It was great.
we're not talking about Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not talking about Game of Thrones.
So no, I think we all know that we can't forgive someone
Okay.
for
I wouldn't,
molesting
no.
or raping
You-
someone.
You can't, not even a little bit.
Even
What
if they
does?
redeem
What can
themselves
you
or sacrifice
How
themselves,
the
I'm
hell are
sorry.
they gonna redeem themselves from that?
I don't know.
do? In the film, I don't think he does anything.
He doesn't.
He
do
basically
fucking
comes.
shit for
I know, like
anybody.
30 years later, he comes back to her, and after she has like a kind of a good relation, like a good career. She came back like as an older man, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Remember me? Remember
I
the guy
remember
that
how I
raped
enjoyed
you?
myself with you and you didn't.
And then she was like, "I never thought I would see you again." And he's like, "Oh no."
I gotta see this. And this was dubbed after the fact, right? By the actors.
I don't know, maybe.
I think it was around the same time in my one
I
crime
would have
book.
been like,
I read.
stabby
Yeah.
stab.
Because at that point, he was invited to this politician's party, and then she was like, "Don't go to the party. It's a trap."
Years before Star Wars ruined that line, guys. It's a trap.
And then it then generally reveals that the politician was actually his partner in crime, James Woods, Max.
And she didn't want him
That's-
to see
that's
that
a
or what?
perfect-
Yeah, because he thought he was dead.
That's the perfect pretentious name for
I
actor
didn't know
like
that.
Yeah, because they built their empire on beer, but when Prohibition ended, he was like, "My job's over, my life is over." So he suggested that Noodles and his then girlfriend call the police on them because he was planning on doing like a beer heist or something, and so he wanted them to call the police on him, tell him that he was going to be there, so he would then do suicide by cop.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Where what that is
The
when,
ending's also kind of ambiguous
kind of, yeah.
because there's like someone gets hit by a train, if I recall correctly.
I don't
Main
remember
character.
that. Possibly.
Right.
It was a long movie. I might have missed it.
Might have missed it. I missed the ending of the family.
Yeah. So yeah,
Final
it was about
thoughts, I
that.
guess.
So it was about that. Well, what else was I gonna say?
I don't know how you're gonna get to the other ones.
I think that's it. So yeah, Once Upon a Time in America. You abstained from the rating. What do you think?
Joe will probably
I
like this
have to
movie.
watch
Huh?
I have to watch it. I can't say
You can
I
watch
can.
it now on Netflix if you have the
I did
time.
not know that.
Once
Your
Upon a Time in
husband,
America.
your husband will
It's
probably
4
like this movie.
hours.
Yeah, your husband will probably like
The only
it.
thing I watched that long is the Lord of the Rings, Marvel movies.
And Lawrence of Arabia.
And,
Hello. Classic.
Oh, before
Harry
I think there was
Potter.
one more thing I wanted to talk
Harry
about
Potter's
Once
like
Upon a
4
Time
hours.
I
in
know,
America.
but I would if it was.
There was this one scene when they were all kids, and one of their friends was actually this, I guess you can say, prostitute.
That's right. He was a gigolo at.
No, it wasn't a guy; it was a girl.
Oh.
It was like a 13, 14-year-old girl.
Jesus.
When?
And when they were young, it was like
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Oh, okay.
So she
okay.
was a prostitute.
Statutory laws going into play.
So she was a kind of a prostitute, but
Kind of.
she would not get paid in money, but she would get paid in baked goods. So
Oh, that's fucked up.
What the fuck?
no, that's what she wanted.
Is
That's
there-
her rates.
It's during Prohibition era, so.
Yeah.
So, but did the kids know that she was that?
Oh yeah. 'Cause-
Treats
So maybe
for
that's
sweets.
one thing that stayed with him and that turned him into the person that would rape somebody.
possibly.
Because he's
Sweets
like,
for
oh,
treats.
women want it, you know?
Uh-huh.
This girl was a prostitute.
'Cause there
and
was
she
this-
did it for bread. Like,
Mm-hmm. And there was also this one.
It's not the only thing you'll be eating tonight.
Yeah. Snap, kid. So there was this one scene where young Noodles got like this baked goods because he wanted to use it to exchange for sexual favors.
Oh,
So
yes.
he came in and her mom and the girl's mom opened and he was like, "Hello, ma'am. Would it bother you to please let your lovely daughter that I am here so I can totally not deflower her?" And then she was like, "She's taking a bath." And then and then you see her. And then she stands up from the bath all naked in the bar on the little barrel thing.
Okay.
And then she's like, "Mom, more water." Ugh. What?
I'm gonna rewatch this now.
Don't rewatch it. No, really watch it because it's a good movie.
Okay.
But
I haven't seen it since I was one.
But then
16,
while he was outside, he was thinking like, maybe I should think with the head that's on my shoulders and not the one in between my legs. So he ends up eating the cupcake.
I think he was just hungry.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
He thought he was doing good, but really, no, that was just selfish. I'm hungry.
Yeah, and
so
you already see that kind of behavior in
Yeah.
him at what age?
He was like 12 or 11, maybe. Maybe it was 9. But
We went from 12 to 9.
Maybe.
So it's
So,
like even
the
worse.
Italians, Sergio Leone and Dario Argento, these Italians, man, I'm telling you, they sure know how to observe just disturbing aspects of life.
so he comes out. So the girl comes out, and she was her name was Peggy. Okay, so Peggy comes out, and then she's like, "What do you want?" And then
He's like, "I already ate my cupcake."
And then he was like, "Oh, Max wanted to tell you something, or somebody wanted to tell you something," and she was like, "And I'll come back another time." And then she was like, "Ugh, whatever."
What?
So she goes up to the roof, and then he follows her up to the roof somehow, and then he sees her doing business with another person,
time.
and it was actually a cop.
A cop.
A cop. Oh no.
Molesting.
So what do you think of that? The whole cops, or the whole thing about cops doing
Cop
that?
fuckers.
Well, him seeing that obviously,
That
drove
makes him not
to-
respect cops.
Yeah, not respect cops and the law at that.
right.
So.
And the whole rape culture also.
They're just like us, except they got a badge.
Yeah, I mean, did it look like, was the girl doing the work or was the guy?
The guy was.
Okay, then yeah, that probably played a really big part in that.
Yeah.
Guys always
And the
gotta
way
do
that
heavy
he
lifting.
got, because the other members of the gang were there too, and they took a picture of it.
Don't they use
Of
it
the
as
cop?
blackmail
Yeah.
for him later?
Oh,
They used like an old plate, like an old photo plate, because this was in the 1910s. This happened. So.
Why is this
So
guy-
what he did to keep him quiet was that he paid for those two,
I can't let my
for
wife
two of
see-
them to go at it with Peggy,
oh my God,
with poor Peggy.
poor Peggy.
But
Oh,
no, she
yeah,
was
that's right.
she was into it though. She
Ugh.
was
Was
fine
she?
with it because she was getting paid.
Ah!
Was he
Okay.
getting paid in bread?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so your final rating on this movie? Masterpiece, good, great.
It was really good. I gave it a really
Even
good
though
movie.
it's all that.
I don't know because I can't get behind the main character, but it was
So
really good.
4 out of 5, 3 out of 5.
I would give it 4 out of 5. Also, she becomes like a madam of a brothel, if you were wondering. So
Who? Peggy?
Peggy, yeah,
Okay.
she also becomes like
It'd be
a,
funny if it was a
she
guy.
becomes a BBW.
Oh, what?
She gains weight and she becomes like kind of like a BBW kind of character, kind of girl. Because of all the girls,
BBW. What's BBW?
big beautiful woman. What?
Next one.
Okay.
Next one.
Otherwise, I can't do anything.
What do you mean you can't do anything?
Because you're taking up all
I don't
your
know.
time.
Don't we have an hour?
Yeah, we got a long time. Okay,
How much
so
time do we have?
it doesn't matter. So
Okay.
the next film was a 2007
Nothing
film
else to
made
do.
by David Cronenberg.
Eastern Promises.
It is Eastern Promises.
Why am I so good at this?
Yes.
I've never heard that.
And it was nominated
Viggo
for
Mortensen.
1 Oscar for Best Actor. And it takes place
Joe
in
would like this.
2007 London.
Oh, London.
Yeah, and
oh,
it's
was
about-
it British? Did it have British accents?
Yeah.
The movie?
Yeah.
Naomi Watts.
Yeah. So it was about a Russian teenager living in London who dies during childbirth, leaves clues to a midwife, who's played by Naomi Watts, in her journal that would tie her child into a rape involving a violent Russian mob family. So
More rape.
Yeah, but we don't see it this time.
Oh.
They just say.
I did not like this film initially, but it grew on me after a while. Some people get pissed off by the ending. I think the ending's one of the best parts. because there's so many layers to everybody, and you just got to go through the emotions, just being patient, because it all pays off in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent Castle really makes you despise him.
Oh yeah. Well, who is he? Who does he play?
He's the other right hand of the main Don, who's always looking over Vigo's shoulder, saying, "Hey, you, why don't you fuck her? You're not a faggot, are you?"
Yeah, there's a lot of homophobia in this film.
Yeah, well, and that's just how gangsters are.
And then most mafia movies
this
are very homophobic.
I mean, look at the final season of The Sopranos, where they realize one of those right-hand guys are gay, and they instantly is like, "You're not a man anymore, even though you fucked another guy."
Yeah, so like one of the son of the boss, really tries to overcompensate a lot.
He just thinks he's cool, but he also has suspicions of everyone. He doesn't let his guard down at the same time.
Yeah, so
we really can't get too detailed without giving this whole movie away.
Yeah, but that's okay. So
it's old.
It's
right?
2007.
2007.
I know, but I don't know. This is kind of like if you showed the ending to, I don't know, Psycho, or even. You really want to give it away?
We know what happened at the end of Psycho.
Okay, well.
I don't know, man. I didn't watch it. But, okay, so...
Anyway, yeah, Vigo is amazing in this movie. This gained, attention in the press because he did his own stunts as in the naked shower fight.
Oh, yeah, if you want to see Viggo Mortensen's weenie, watch this movie.
Everybody in all their glory.
I don't want to watch it.
It's alright. He's a handsome dude, but he's my guy crush. Anyway, seriously, it's a really good fight, and it kind of adds to the suspense that's been building the entire movie. Mm-hmm. And you don't even know if you want to root for him or not. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about Cronenberg is that he really has a thing for the use of a person's body,
exploding heads and all that. But
that whole thing.
I was not crazy about Cronenberg. I didn't hate him. Because he wasn't schlocky, but he was a B-movie maverick, and then slowly started integrating, smart ideas. And with this and A History of Violence, I liked how he got away, and just the gore happened because it had to happen. Mm-hmm. And with, A History of Violence, for instance, he was very offended when everyone was comparing it to, various Harrison Ford and Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And that's where I felt like he felt with History of Violence. He's like, yes, it's an anti-violent movie. And he's like, it's not an action movie. I'm like, well, it kind of is an action movie. But it's a thoughtful action movie. But so he has the seeds here, and I think in making this a thoughtful character study, because there is a lot of stuff that just kind of is going to take multiple rewatches to get anything out of. Mm-hmm. So slow moments.
So about the boss. Now it is kind of the boss's son, who is
Rollerstall.
Yeah.
I detested that dude the minute I saw him, because I knew he was just going to just beat everyone up. He even beats his own son up at one point, right? Yeah.
But I was talking about the son character.
Oh, the son.
The thing about him is that he has a lot of pent up sexual aggression, because it is implied that he is indeed gay, but he's afraid that he can't come out because
I will have to rewatch it for that now. I did not see
family, because he tries to overcompensate a lot by having like all these girls over, but not touching them or whatever.
We might have seen more of this had they made that sequel, and I don't know why they canceled it, because I think it did decent business. And
I think so too.
It got good award attention. Mm-hmm. I don't know any critic who hated this movie. The only critics who seemed to hate it were ones who like everything else, but we're in the minority on this. Mm-hmm.
So he tells Viggo Mortensen's character Nikolai, who was with them when all these girls were over, and he's like, "Hey, you Nikolai, go over and have sex with one of these, and I'm gonna watch.
Fuck these whores."
And then Nikolai was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because I want to make sure you're not gay."
Yes.
So that's what happened. That's exactly what he does.
For what is true.
Then he goes and rapes the girl?
No, he doesn't rape her. It's kind of consensual-ish.
Okay.
He's gentle.
I don't know.
He definitely got AIDS.
I thought we were watching. You were talking about the rape.
No, it wasn't the rape scene.
Okay.
But they do.
It's still fucked up.
Yeah. When it was talked about the rape scene, another thing is that the girl. He said that the girl, because the son was the one who did the rape, and the girl, and he said that in her diary that implicated the Bratva, which is the Russian mob, that in the act of raping he couldn't get a hard on. he couldn't do it. Mainly because it might have been because of his homosexuality.
Yeah.
He said he couldn't do it. So, and then which made him angry even more angry, and got him to be more physical. And then the dad came in and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you, some kind of not straight person?" And yeah,
non-gangster.
yeah. So, what do you guys think about that? That whole idea of, I guess you can say, toxic masculinity, about how you're less of a man.
It spreads much like a virus, much like AIDS.
Toxic masculinity is something
Which Vigo definitely gets a bunch of STDs doing what he's doing.
It's something that is passed down, like generation to generation, just like much like racism. It's so fucking
you either are or you
embedded in the older generations, and they just taught it to, you know, everyone else for some reason, and it's just like, why?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it's kind of like that. Toxic masculinity is passed down.
Yeah, so...
Good trivia. Vincent Castle would play a very similar character based on an actual gangster in these two-part movie, Public Enemy No. 1.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good movie too, yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard good
The
stuff.
Johnny Depp one?
And I don't think it's that one.
That's Black Mass, but that is a good movie too.
I think it was also in another movie called
I
Public
thought
Enemy.
Public Enemy, yeah, it was Johnny
But
Depp.
I don't think that's that one. I think it's a different one. But again,
You're thinking. Yeah, I think it is called Public Enemies. You're talking about the one. No, you're talking about the one where he plays Dillinger and.
Yeah, that's the one
Yeah,
that I'm talking about. That one's
yeah.
called Public Enemy too.
yeah. Okay, so it brings me to another question. Like, what do you guys think about the use of rape in films, both in Eastern Promises and in Once Upon a Time?
It depends on whether there's much to talk about in this subject matter. So, like, let's say if I see a Death Wish knockoff movie, I already know I'm getting into a grindhouse movie. The sleaze and crapola comes with that genre's territory. So, you know, any other... If I see J-Lo in a Taken knockoff or, you know, some other Charles Bronson wannabe, then I know what I'm getting into. It's going to be excessive and gratuitous. Now, if it's a regular movie and it's not trying to be exploitation, then we got some problems. It better be, you know, thought-provoking movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for every 100 people who can really praise about the movie The Accused, you know, there's going to be 100 other people who's like, I can't watch stuff like that.
Yeah. Funny thing, I actually shot a rape scene.
You did tell me about that. That was...
It was really hard for me.
You were the one being
raped.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was shot very carefully.
And the DP was a pervert, though.
The DP was. Like, the
Really?
DP was straight up fucking like, oh my god.
I had encountered him on another...
I almost fucking quit the set. Because
Really? Was
he
he
was just
hitting on
like,
you?
so, all the
Yeah.
time. And then he would like, always just want me to take off my clothes. And he'd be like, but you're not going to show your boobs for the scene? I'm like, bitch, you're not paying me, first of all.
Snap.
So,
Dude,
no.
you best be paying her if you
I'm
want that.
not, you know?
And he
A lot
was
of
the
money.
director,
And it
so
was
he's
weird
already
that the
overstepping.
director was like having to tell me like, don't listen to him. You know, if he keeps bothering you, you know, tell me and
He
I'll
wasn't
do
even
something.
good at
And
what
I'll
he
punch
did.
him across the face.
Yeah.
I'll punch him across
I
the
saw
face.
So
his
it's
music,
just like-
but I think he just didn't process it well. But no, I invited him to another project, and
Anyways.
he had been on Good Behavior. But on this one, it was for a UTA project. They were doing like a NASA submission contest. And the next thing you know, he's just like talking while they're, you know, they clearly shouted, you know, quiet on set. Oh, well, I think you should do this. It's like, you're not being helpful. You're being a troll.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Stop.
but
Get that out of here. Get that
yeah.
out.
So,
Anyway.
but anyways, the rape scene.
No, wait, what was that? Was Joe with you when that happened?
No, he wasn't. But when I told him, he was like, "You better." He was like almost ready to come to set, dude.
Dude,
Like
yeah,
he
I would
was
too.
really about to come and start some shit with
Yeah.
that guy, and I was like, I gotta finish this fucking movie. I told him. Anyways, so but
Rape
it was something that I thought was gonna be harder than it really was because. Mostly because aside from that DP, I had everybody else, you know, that was professional. And the guy that was doing the raping for the most part, because there's like two guys that raped me, right? One of them was Caesar. But Caesar, he didn't even have to mess with me because they just did his scene like from behind, you know, like just facing him or whatever.
Yeah.
So
he
it
didn't
depends
even-
on how it's shot.
Yeah, so the guy that was actually like pushing up against me or whatever, like that was really like not really pushing up against me. They just like made it seem that way. They
Okay.
shot it that way. He was like really worried and he was like really scared and he was like nervous
Yeah,
and
I
he was
would
like
be too.
I don't like he's like tell me if I'm hurting you in any way or you don't want me to do this or where do you want me to touch you? Where do you know, like he was like working with me in every single way. And so I felt like much better. But getting in that emotional state, like it took a lot out of me.
So
like it was hard.
Were you able to? You didn't rehearse it beforehand?
I rehearsed, a couple of times. Like, we did a couple shots.
I don't think this movie ever came out, did it?
Yeah, that's something that you really need to rehearse with everyone.
And that's another thing. It didn't even come out. The movie never got fucking finished. Because the director was like, he lives in LA, and so he was down to shoot for that amount of time. And then we forgot to film a scene or something, and he's like, yeah, we'll do the scene this next weekend, and then it just never happened.
So I guess it's all that for nothing.
All that for nothing.
All that whole thing with the guy is like, hey, let's take off your shirt.
No, he wasn't like that.
It wasn't that
They
sleazy?
straight up, it was worse. Like, the girl, there's a girl, like, that's in charge of the men, like, it's this rival gang or whatever. And she finds me in the restroom stall hiding because I'm like a young, daughter of the other guy they just killed. She pulls me out by my hair and drags me and throws me up against the wall. And she just like looks at her men like, take care of that or whatever, and she gets out.
I was talking about the director of photography.
What? What about him?
That guy who was like, take off your shirt.
Oh.
I was just like, that.
After a while, he stopped, which was thankful. I was thankful for it because I was like,
I'll be like, boy, I'm gonna punch him. Okay.
All right. So.
Anyways, if they're gonna do it, I understand why they do it. Like, I know it's not actually happening, but just thinking about it and having to see it, like, it just really like inside of you, it just really like makes a thing like ugh,
Yeah. All right.
I give this movie a 3 out of 5. There's some imperfection, and I don't think it measures up to a history of violence, but I still think it's worth watching for some good old Russian mob.
Yeah.
And the shocking ending at the end, it kind of makes the movie.
What do you think, Ruby?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. You can watch it now on Hulu if you want.
I got Hulu.
Okay, so the next film is a film by a Brazilian filmmaker named Fernando Marais. Yes, it is City of God, the 2002
the one that I
film.
have not watched either.
This is a easy 5 out of 5. Just good news. The cinematographer went on to later lens another movie called Man on Fire, and made his debut with a forgettable Mel Gibson movie called Get the Gringo.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Get the Gringo.
I remember hearing.
It's Escape from New York and Mexico.
Yeah. So this is based on a biography by Paulo Lins, and it takes place in the slums of Rio de Janeiro, where two kids, one played by Alexander Rodriguez, and the other one played by I believe Leandro Firmino da Hora.
Alicia Braga's first movie.
Mm-hmm.
We like your
so their path diverge, and one struggles to become a photographer, and the other one a drug kingpin. So,
like a cholo.
It branches out like this really. It's a very complex story with a bunch of characters and a bunch of players, and a lot of pieces are moving. But it primarily focuses on the character of Rocket, who was Rodriguez's character. Who is the person who sees like all this violence and these gang wars and these drugs being used and sold, and wants to work his way out of it by becoming like a photojournalist. And then we see that contrast with this other guy named Little Z. Now this guy, he's a straight up maniac. This guy is insane. He ended up becoming like one of the major drug lords of the Brazilian youth gang in the City of God. And the City of God is supposed to be like the slum area in Rio de Janeiro. So so it's about that whole contrast between the two. And now when
the music video style editing really works for this movie.
Oh yeah, it really works with it because
without being flashy, because it can, it really invokes all the confusing energy, especially when he's trying to run away and there's these gang wars in the street.
Yeah, and no, Mireles, what he did, he didn't block the characters. He didn't block the characters, and he didn't block the camera. So the characters the actors would walk around whenever they can, and the camera will try to adjust for that by walking around, and it kind of tries to immerse the audience within the world that it is in, and
There's not a single wasted frame in this movie.
Oh yeah, it's really good. And also, since it takes place in Rio de Janeiro, which is where the Christ the Redeemer statue is, they not one showed that statue even though it's kind of like not showing the Empire State Building
Yeah,
in New
like
York
a
City.
traditional.
Yeah, but they don't show it. I mean, I think it's because that they're trying to show that
This is not.
this is a godless place.
Yeah.
And I think it also kind of has the funny irony of the place being called City of God.
I like
Even though
how
it's a
he's
god's
talking
place.
about his first sex life, and then he just skips over it saying, "But that's not appropriate," or something like that.
Yeah, because he gets
I
with
mean,
this journalist girl.
He does have some sense of humors, and Little Z, one of the main antagonists, who everyone kind of loves to hate or joke about, he very much mirrors O-Dog from Menace to Society, where you're just like, he just steals the show every time he's on, because he's just an ultimate scum.
Yeah. So let's talk about Little Z for a bit. So Little Z, he started off with this other youth gang, which derived with the main character's brothers and all that. It was composed of 3 people. So they tried to rob this motel area, I guess kind of brothel-y area where everyone goes there to, do the deed. So they came in and they would rob the place. So little Z, he was like 6, 7 years old at this point. And then they were like, you know what, go look out because you're still just 7 years old. And then he did not like that one bit. So he was told to...
Because they're all basically young adults and kids. Immersed together.
So what he was told to do, he was told to shoot the window if the cops came. So what he did was like, you know what, while they were stealing, they were like, you know what, I'm going to shoot the window. So he shot the window, even though the cops weren't there, and they booked it. So after they left...
he outsmarts them.
Yeah, so after he left, he goes back to the victims, and he has a gun, and he just shoots them all in cold blood.
What?
And he laughs in their face. Now he...
At
I
the
gotta
age of
rewatch
7?
that scene.
Oh my god.
Yep.
So it is really unsettling seeing like this little kid shoot a bunch of people
Yeah.
and laugh about it.
Yeah.
So I know after that he basically like used that gun and he shot like a bunch of people. He did like hits for people, and as he grew older, he got like a lot of money and everything. So after that, he kind of rose through the ranks of all that and became a drug lord himself. But then he became like this rival to this other guy who was this white guy who's called Carrot because he's white.
Carrot.
And he has red hair.
Okay.
So-
I would expect that.
Yeah, so then near the end, they kind of get into this gang war and all that kind of stuff. And also kind of shows, he would also recruit little kids to become, first they would start off as, I believe, lookouts, and then they would become dealers, and then they would start off as lookouts, and then they would become like delivery people. They start off as delivery people, then the lookout, then dealer, and then if they're good at math, they can be a manager, which means they can distribute.
That seems like the wrong way. It should be the lookout first, don't you think?
No, well, because what they do is they basically say like, hey kid, can you deliver this message to this guy? Tell him I don't like you, and we're gangsters.
Gangsters for life.
Yeah. So it's that whole idea of nobody's bats an eye because that's just how things were done around there. And so is that a whole idea of being born into poverty but not having the means to escape it? So you have only 2 options: is either
Guns or your brains, or
guns
both.
or your brains, like either kill or be killed. So what do you guys think about that, being born into such an awful environment and having to conform to it?
That's tough.
Because everyone's got a different brain. Some wise up and get smarter than the system they're in, and others just, they don't know anything else except bully.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that
Be the ultimate bully.
It could be that
They're not even meaning to be bullies. That's just all they know is like, I'm gonna beat you up.
It's either they take the easy way or the hard way.
And what's the hard way?
The hard way would be trying to beat the fucking system and not get in it like everybody else is. The easy way would be to come up like everybody else did on that street.
So like what Rocket did when he finally got out of the whole thing. And so so there was this one scene where this one little kid who was a part of Lil Zay's gang, and he was like, he went over to send a message to Carrot because they were in a rivalry. So he was like, and Carrot was like, what are you doing here? You're just a kid. You shouldn't do anything. So, and then the kid was like, Nah, I'm a man because I smoke crack, I smoke the cigarettes, I smoked the cocaine, I killed people, I did this and that. So, and this was like a little kid. It was like an 8-year-old kid. And so it brings me to another question of what is this idea of manhood that's being shown?
It's testosterone fueled, but in a way where it's not like, hey, this is a
I
guy's
think
movie.
That's
this
really
is
just depicting how fucked up that place is.
That's all they
that
know.
they're in.
That they view maturity as doing drugs and smoking bad things.
Yeah.
I think this started a new wave of just showing, kids becoming thugs at a young age. Because, I saw similar movies like Gomorrah and I couldn't get into them. And this one, I think, stands out because aside from, again, being well shot, well rendered, memorable characters, it's very organized and never outstays its welcome.
Yeah. And plus, I remember because they showed a couple people trying to escape that.
The dark humor also works.
Oh yeah, there was kind of like some humorous parts.
Especially once again, this starts off with the ending of the movie being shown at the start of the movie, and you don't know what it means until you're halfway through, and you're like, oh, this is where they're gonna. All hell on earth is gonna break loose, and he's gonna get out.
So they showed some characters wanting to escape this crime-running life. One of them being Benny, who was Lil Zay's right-hand man and best friend.
Okay.
So when he told Lil Z that he met a girl and they want to move out and get a farm and grow the marijuanas and smoke that all day.
Really? That's what they said?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Sweet.
And when Lil Z heard about that, when he told him that, he was not having it. He was like, you can't do this over a girl, you're going to destroy our everything. And he was like,
And he killed him?
And then he killed him.
Oh, man.
Just saw fucking kid.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 5 out of 5. See this masterpiece.
What do you think?
Oh, I'm gonna see it, but
Right.
Joe's already seen it. He's been telling me to see it. How long is it?
I don't remember.
And where
It's
can you watch
Long
it?
enough to be worth your time.
you can watch it now on Netflix.
Okay,
Really
I
good,
will
really
watch
good
that
stuff.
on Netflix.
Okay, next up is a Coen Brothers film.
No Country for Old Men.
No, it's not No Country for Old Men.
Miller's Crossing.
It is Miller's Crossing, the 1999 film. And it takes place in 1929 New Orleans.
New Orleans?
New Orleans. And it's
Nola?
based on 2 novels, Red Harvest and Glass Key, made by Dashiell Hammett. So it tells a story of one Tom Reagan, played by Gabriel Byrne, an advisor to a Prohibition-era crime boss, who is played by, I believe, by Albert Finney.
Yes.
Okay, so tries to keep the peace between warring mobs, but gets caught in divided loyalties. So
It's Yohimbo.
Huh?
It's Yohimbo, but in Prohibition era.
Yeah.
2 gangs against 1.
Mm-hmm. So 2 rival gangs, and what mainly started this rivalry was that the Italian mafia wanted this one guy killed, but the Irish mob did not want him killed for whatever reason. So the mafia asked the Irish mob boss, "Hey, I want him killed," but he was like, "No way, Jose." And then he was like, "Oh, you're gonna have a war on your hands." So Reagan, who was charged with deciding whether or not to kill this guy, and this guy, he's played by John Turturro in this film, and
Don't kill me.
his name is Birnbaum. So
Steve Buscemi is also in here.
he was in it for like 1 minute. He was like for in a second. But yeah, he stole the show for the 1 minute he was in it. So yeah, it's about that whole conflicting idea of stopping or starting a gang war.
I feel like this movie is kind of let down by the fact that it's kind of a love letter to all these 2 gangs with one guy interrupting the flow of their gang war.
Mm-hmm.
On a positive note, I will say Gabriel Byrne is pretty much the driving force behind this movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Other than the occasional just dark humor that you typically find in a Coen movie.
Yeah. So what leads me to this question, like what would you guys do? Would you kill one person in order to stop a war, or to kind of prevent
God,
this
don't make me
gang war,
think about that.
what would you do?
If I was a hitman and I had put a lot of ethics aside from the door and I liked a certain damsel in distress, yeah, I think
You would do it?
killed the gang.
What about you?
We're actually writing a movie as we speak about this guy who becomes a cop just so he can basically kill the head dons of every mobster in his city.
Oh, that's interesting.
What were you? What was the
thoughtful
question again?
individual.
It's just
It's
about
like, what would you
kill
the
one to
guy
save
or not
many?
kill the guy?
to
in order-
save many.
To say, yeah.
Because the whole beginning, he lets someone go, even though, because he doesn't have the heart to kill him yet, which is funny because he's a
Is he a
cold-blooded
bad
dude.
guy? Yeah, is he a
So-
bad guy?
Gray area.
He's
the main
like
guy.
well, it doesn't matter, good guy, bad guy.
This
This
is a
mob
gangster movie, so
wants him dead. The other guy, mob, does not want him dead. And he says, if you don't kill him, we're going to have a war. And then the other guy says, well, if you kill him, we will also have a war. What do you do?
I would arrange a meeting and set aside the pros and the cons and reach an agreement together.
That's
so
such a
that there's
naive answer.
that
no
would never
war,
fucking
no
happen,
conflict.
Never
especially in
happen.
Prohibition.
That would never happen.
I would kill
You know
them.
why it would never happen?
Why?
Because no one can fucking grow the fuck up and have a damn just conversation.
I would be clever. I would kill him and make it look like a police raid.
Okay. So,
It wasn't from the other city families. No. He got iced by the cops.
So what? So,
I tip off the cops. And then,
Yes, that's what,
Mr. Officer, this guy tried to mug me. Shoot him.
So what Reagan? You want to know what Reagan actually does?
What?
So what he does is that he gets sent to the woods by the Italian mafia. He was said, "Hey, here's the guy. Go take him into the woods." And the woods is called Miller's Crossing, by the way.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's
Take
like,
him
take him to the Miller's Crossing.
If the poster didn't give that away.
Yeah,
then
and
well.
shoot him in the head and kill him. So what he does is he takes him out and he drags him into the woods. And the guys are like, "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me." And the guy's like, "Please find it in your heart not to kill me."
John
and then
Turturro
he's like-
doing his usual overacting.
And he's like, and then he just like shoots the gunfire, and then he's still alive. And then he's like, "Get out of here!" And then he runs off. He's like, "Thank you, my gosh!"
So
and
he
he runs
doesn't
off. And he's
die.
like, "Get out of here! Never gets seen again." So he runs away, and since he did the gunshot, the mafia gangsters thinks he killed him.
Mhm.
So it was like they go in and say, like, "Let's get out of here," and they leave. So now everyone thinks he's dead, but he didn't kill him.
There's no blood there. Or
But the
nothing.
thing, what happens is that Turturro, he comes back to them
To
and
kill
then-
him.
No, I don't think he comes to kill him.
At
but
the
when
very
he-
end, remember?
Yeah.
He's there standing in his house saying, hey.
Yeah. So what
Killed
happens
me when he
was
had the
is
chance.
that so what happens was Birnbaum comes in and Reagan's like, "What are you doing here?" And then Birnbaum's like, "Well, I know you told me to leave, but I thought this is a good opportunity for me. I can do this. I can do these. Now you're indebted to me because I can't. if I go out, they'll know that you didn't kill me, and then it's your
my
head."
God.
So
And then, yeah, he does the typical James Bond stupid shtick where I'm going to monologue giving the protagonist enough time to kill me.
yeah,
It's like, you fucking idiot.
yeah. But he ends up-
You should have just run and left town.
So what he ends up doing is later on, he ends up.
I think he even told him to leave town.
Yeah, he did tell him.
Don't come
later.
back again.
Yeah. So what he ends up doing is later on in the film, he ends up killing him again. Except this time he did not hesitate. He just like
Right.
shot him in the head. Would you?
And he gave the audience the satisfaction.
Yeah. So it gives me like this other
I don't even
question
know if the
about the
audience is
whole.
satisfied. They're
Would-
just laughing.
Would you, if you get like a second shot at life, would you take it or would you just take it and then just throw it in their saber's face? Would that? What is that? What is that?
It's almost like a detective movie where the clues are all there and the detective's too stupid to figure it out. It's like, alrighty, Einstein, if you won't get it now, chances are you never will.
Yeah. This is also this strange
It's a wink to
symbol.
the audience.
Yeah, this is a strange symbol of the hat, the fedora that
The
the guy
loyalty.
wears. So the Coen brothers constantly focus on the hat, like a zoom in, and these are the beginning. The title sequence has like the hat on the floor, and then it flies away, and Reagan tells this other girls that he had a dream that he lost his hat and that it was flying away. So what do you guys think the hat represents in the film?
I have no idea.
I'm gonna have to re-see it, but as I recall, it was symbolism of who's in power. You know, the top hat.
Yes, because the mafia don in the film, he constantly, whenever he gets mad,
He never wears a hat, does he?
Huh?
I don't recall him wearing a hat.
Yeah, he does. He wears a hat.
Okay, then
So he's like,
I gotta rewatch it.
he always says, "You're always giving me the high hat." Whenever somebody's telling him something he doesn't want to hear, so you're giving me the high hat. So I also think it's also kind of like the symbol of the mob and criminal
Yeah.
Cool guys
Underworld?
were played.
yeah, about the whole idea of the hat and how it's like a symbol of crime lords and like all that kind of stuff.
I guess.
You
I don't really
guess.
see a lot of gangsters wearing hats or mafia people wearing hats.
How dare you?
What's your final verdict on this movie?
Yeah. Okay. Well, final judgments. What do you think?
It's a 2 out of 5 for me.
2 out of 5. Oh, that's low.
I am not the biggest Coen guy. Don't get me wrong. I love Fargo and No Country. Some of their other slapstick ones. This one for me, again, because the story, you know, has been redone so many times. I don't care about the outcome, and some of the gags just fall on their side. They don't make me fall on my side laughing. They're just not as well executed as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think they're too busy trying to reference a lot of, you know, classic 40s, you know, Cagney movies to really get their narrative down.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, though. A lot of critics like this movie.
Okay, so what do you
It
think?
sounds interesting.
It's
I
more
haven't
interesting to
watched
talk about it, but for me, I tried rewatching it one summer and it was just like, it just
No.
couldn't get back into it.
Oh,
I
okay.
was just like, I know how this ends. I can only be interested by so much gunplay for so long to where I just tune out.
Okay.
What'd you rate?
Mine, I would give it 5 out of 5.
Oh,
I
there
really
we go.
like it. It was a
Instant
good
classic.
film because the writing is the best out of all of the ones because they actually talk like they did back in that time.
I'll give you that.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
true.
So in